So I just got here, so I didn't hear anybody else's speech. I don't know what the tone is and everything, so I'm just going to go with what I've got. It may be kind of like the last few verses of the book of Malachi, which ends very abruptly, like, do this or I'll come and I'll strike the land with a curse. That's the tone, but I guess this audience would understand it. So the great anti-abortion rescue leader, Joseph Foreman, in the 1980s, he wrote a book called Shattering the Darkness, and here's a quote from that book. The abortion culture, through its courts and police, wants to prove that all rescuers are hypocrites. You're happy to grandstand, it says, happy to force others to suffer for the unborn, happy to talk about Jesus and the value of the fetus, but you don't really believe it any more than we do. And we'll prove it. You haven't even been in jail as long as the woman is pregnant. Now that your little stunts haven't worked, now that you're learning what it means to suffer for these children, you'll discover that you agree with us after all, that these kids, fetuses really, are certainly not worth suffering for. You watch. We'll show you in reality you're on our side, despite what you say. Just look at yourself. You will stop rescuing in order to surround yourself with the same comforts of the flesh that we surround ourselves with. And that's what we say about abortion and preserving the opportunity of the woman to surround herself with comforts equal to yours, even if it means her child must die today. So, I want to take a quick poll. Raise your hand if you want abortion to end. That's nice. That's what I expected. Now, raise your hand if you personally are ready right now to make all the sacrifices necessary and take all the risks necessary and do all the stuff necessary to end abortion as fast as possible. I know. Well, thank you for being honest. That's the root of our problem. And if we don't fix that problem, and I'm not just talking to people in this room, I'm talking to everybody, I don't know what else we're going to do that's going to succeed. So, like you said, my name is Jonathan. Many of you already know me. I've got 10 minutes, well, like 8 minutes now, to condense things that I would frankly spend hours talking about into an 8-minute little discussion here. Forgive me if I seem rushed and brazen. I just don't have time for subtlety. So I've spent about 13 years in this area trying to convince Christians to get serious about ending abortion as quickly as possible. And I'm going to describe how difficult that's been, but before I do that, I need to describe why that's so important. This phrase, as quickly as possible, is very pertinent because kids die every day, and we don't have the justification to try a more gradual solution if a more immediate one was available to us. Now, supposedly the national abortion rate has been cut in half since 1989. I don't know if that's true. Let's assume that it's true. At that rate, we can expect abortion to end 2055, okay? That's unacceptable. That's millions of more people who die just because we wanted to stay with stay the course. So we need to change what we're doing. This bill that's being proposed is a wonderful thing. If it's enacted, it will outlaw abortion from day one to the moment of birth. It's a step in the right direction, but I think we all know that what we really want is not for something to just be illegal, but to be abolished. And making something illegal doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to be practiced, especially with the advent of pill abortions. How are you going to police a pill that somebody takes in the privacy of their own home? You can't. We need to convince Virginians, Americans, to, of their own volition, abandon this practice of killing their babies. No institution is going to do that job for us. The press isn't going to do it. The schools are not going to do it. The liberal media is certainly not going to do it. The conservative media probably isn't going to even do it because the people we need to convince aren't watching conservative media. Social media is not going to do it because it's an echo chamber. This has to happen through people like you making individual conversations and showing the truth to individuals, face to face, interaction by interaction. I'm not denying the law as a teacher. I'm not denying that social media has a presence. I'm just saying it isn't enough. This means we have to go en masse to colleges, high schools, street corners, everywhere we go, and give this message to people. We have to disrupt the industry, not just the industry of abortion, but of all of America. We have to disrupt the public life and make people's lives uncomfortable, just like you would do if somebody you care about was in danger. And you have to do a lot of it. It's very labor intensive. And this is the problem. The things that ordinary anti-abortion people need to do to effect change is the things that nobody wants to do. Can you all hear me? Is this okay? Okay, if you're having trouble, speak up. So I came in 2009 to the D.C. area and I started collecting the names of anti-abortion people who, in the hopes that they would work with me. And most of these names I got one by one. And this is it. This is the fruit of my labor. Okay? These names here, highlighted in yellow, there's about 30 of them, are the folks that I think I can count on to help in some form of activism. 30 people in 13 years. And most of these people, I don't even know for sure. I have to really press them, and it has to be the right arrangement to get them to come out. I would throw this on the ground to be more, dramatic, but I'm not going to, okay? This is the majority. This is 2,000 people. These are people who I met, and each one of them said, by and large, hey, I want to do something anti-abortion. I like what you're doing. I support it. Put me on the list. And then I never heard back from them. Never heard nothing. Didn't open an email. Didn't answer a phone. Nothing. Not a single thing. 2,000 people. I'm sorry if this is a bit depressing. This scroll here, all right, this is about 130 people. No, 300 people. I recounted. 300 people who definitively told me, I don't want to hear about this anymore. I've changed my mind. I don't care. Maybe some of them participated once in a while. Others have participated a whole bunch, and then at some point, forget it. Literally. Here's some testimonies. I changed some of the names. Tracy, a woman in Baltimore, supported us at the 8th Street Festival in 2019, said her church would be interested, but then we spoke and she seemed full of excuses on why she and nobody else would have time, etc. She said that if I scheduled something on a Saturday, maybe she'd participate. I scheduled something on a Saturday. She said it wasn't her style. I complained, she got angry, and she went off about how it was a right to do what she wants, and she doesn't appreciate being told otherwise, and she hung up on me. Perla, a student in 2019, says she absolutely wanted to be a part of weekly outreaches. Later, she said she had very little time, and she agreed things need to be sacrificed, but I called again, and as soon as I mentioned anti-abortion, she hung up. Andre supported us at Nova Community College, November 2018, said he might help, at least on campus. He really seemed motivated, and he said he'd join us in January, but he never did. On July 3rd, 2019, I called again. He hung up as soon as I said my name, and then he wouldn't answer. Aiden, 2000, very enthusiastic pro-life girl who supported us in September 2018 at Nova Community College, said she would absolutely participate, but her mother is a lawyer who is very risk-averse and doesn't want her to be involved in anything that might pose a physical or legal danger to her. Candy, one of my friends who had expressed interest but can't seem to get off her job enough to participate, did help at Woodbridge for a few outreaches in February 2020, but never afterwards, and in May 2020 agreed that she should be taken off our list, after which she began volunteering with a local megachurch. Tim, older man, joined us twice in April 2021. However, he seemed to have stormed off in anger when Susan corrected him for putting a sign in the wrong place, and then he doesn't talk to us anymore. Mike, one of the most enthusiastic, thoughtful people I've ever met, spent multiple hours listening to me talk about the Christian duty to end abortion, and he agreed with all of it, but then he abruptly decided he was only going to help maybe once a month if his church was also helping. We know how tenuous that is. Taylor, a girl who supported us in Silver Spring, was okay with victim images, didn't want us to use them where I think it would be working, where it would work. Said she would be okay with working with us in April 2021, but canceled as I was already halfway to the location, helped once in May 2021, then had to leave early, even though she didn't tell me she had to. And the next time stood us up because she had some church thing to do, and then she stopped responding to calls and emails. I finally reached her in July 2020, and she said, or 2021, and she said she didn't have to participate anymore. She talked about prayer was most important. As I continued to reason with her, it was obvious it was pointless. And the list could really go on and on and on. And I'm sorry how negative this sounds, but this has been the story of my life for about 13 years. Endless, constant excuses and reasons by Christian people who should know better, deciding that abortion was not something they needed to do. We have a problem. We have a serious problem. And I've tried everything I can think of to rectify this situation. I've talked to multiple pastors, practically every pro-life pastor and priest, for some of the liturgical churches and denominations that I can find in this entire area. They would let me into the room. They'd let me into their office, but you heard the same thing over and over and over again. We support you. Go do it somewhere else. Everything seemed to be in competition with anti-abortion work, and everything seemed to be more important. The men's retreat, the women's retreat, the Christmas program, the Easter program, VBS, the softball league. There's not a single thing that these churches don't think is more important than ending abortion. Except when COVID happened, all that stuff went away all of a sudden because it's more important to, Which means apparently that born people are more important than unborn people. That's what it means. A lot of them say, hey, our contribution is helping a local pregnancy help center. This dollar bill represents the sacrifice that the average church congregant makes to a pregnancy help center. This is it. This is their contribution, and that precludes any other type of work in the mind of most believers. And of course, we focus on the gospel, and we can't be distracted by lesser things like abortion, which is probably not what somebody would say if their own life was being threatened. So eventually I gave up meeting with pastors, and I started just standing outside churches with big signs calling them to repent of their apathy. I've used them at the March for Life, Christian conferences. I've used them at the all sorts of big events. You may have seen them. Sometimes congregants would come out and they'd talk to us. At the March for Life, people would talk to us, but as you can see, the results are still pretty weak. And meanwhile, pastors would call the cops on us. The deacons would come out and take our literature off of the cars that we had leafleted, tear them up, or otherwise put them away. Some of these guys at the churches, they never work harder than they do when they're trying to prevent their congregants from seeing or reading our message. Amen. And the same thing happened last Monday at a Christian music concert. People were on their phones walking in to spend 2 or 3 hours to watch Chris Tomlin. Don't want to see our images. They don't want to see it. Believers will spend thousands of dollars to fly across the world to go to a country they've never been to before. They don't know the culture. They don't know the language. They can't spread the gospel worth anything. Come home and talk about how great it was, but they won't walk across the street to save a child in danger. I don't know why this is. I created a website, getserious.church.com, to explain my point of view. Maybe a website. Maybe people go to the website and I can elaborate on these points. And I didn't think I put a lot of work into it. I made a lot of good points. We got a lot of good footage on there. But people won't read the articles by and large. They won't watch the videos. They won't share the memes because this is not something they care about and it embarrasses them. If you put a lot of anti-abortion stuff criticizing the Democratic Party and the abortion industry online, it'll fly across the internet within a certain circle, okay? But you put something up in there criticizing the church, it's not going to go around as quickly because who cares about that? Anybody seen the movie Voiceless, 2016? It's a great film. You should see Voiceless. It's brilliant. It talks about all this stuff. A lot of anti-abortion leaders of note are in there, okay? And I packed the Springfield Theater full of 200 people to come to see Voiceless in 2016. They even let me speak afterwards, and I said all this same stuff. I got 2 volunteers out of it. And now those 2 volunteers aren't doing anything, although one is a rather old woman who really can't. I don't know how to fix this problem, guys. I don't know what to do. I've tried practically everything. And the only remaining thing I can think of is that all of us need to model the type of lifestyle we hope the rest of the world starts leading. The bill is wonderful. The fact that you're here is wonderful. But if we can't live, I guess the secular phrase is be the change you want to see. If we can't start doing that, how can we expect anybody else to do it? So, that being my statement, I hope that this wasn't too depressing. I don't want to completely depress you. I just want to warn, just like at the end of Malachi, there is an other. If we do not do such and such, God will come and strike the land with a curse, and it'll probably start with us. Thank you very much. Available for discussion afterwards. Thank you.